Hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and today I'm bringing you the performance analysis of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on PC. And as usual, the first thing I do is test the CPU requirements, and by that I use an old i7-6700K just to check how much CPU power do we need to achieve at least the 60 FPS. And in this case you can see that the 6700K is not enough to keep above 60 FPS at all times, since it's going to get lower than that. So my guess is that you are going to need a much modern CPU, faster CPU to achieve the 60 FPS, and probably recommended a 6-core CPUs as minimum to be sure that you're going to have a smooth 60 FPS at all times when it comes to CPU. So after that I have to test the CPU on my test bench just to be completely sure that I'm always going to be achieving those 60 FPS and be sure that it's the GPU and not the CPU the bottleneck. And in this case you can see I'm going over 200 frames per second with everything low with the DLSS performance, because what I'm trying to achieve here is that the GPU is not the bottleneck. So after that, and after testing on very low, I test on very high just to see if there is any settings on the graphics that is going to affect CPU performance. Unfortunately in this case I'm not able to achieve that because the GPU becomes the bottleneck immediately. So meaning that even at this low quality, this game is very GPU intensive, which means that, well, I couldn't test if the CPU, if there is any option that is affecting the CPU when it comes to very high. However, what I achieved so far is to be completely sure that the CPU is not going to be a problem when it comes to achieving 60 FPS at all times, no matter the settings. And at this moment I'm going to ask you to do those things that helps us YouTuber to bring you better and more content, which means that you need to subscribe, press the like button, and if you want you can press that bell to activate all notifications, and of course you can become a member of this channel and make a donation or anything that will help me keep buying the games to keep testing. So thank you very much for anyone helping with the channel in any way or form, even with a simple like. Thank you very much. So having said that, now I'm going to be testing with ray tracing active, because I still need to be sure that ray tracing, as we know, is going to be a very CPU intensive feature, and I don't want it to become a problem when it comes to the CPU, and that we can discard that now because we're always 60 FPS. Remember that the analysis that I do is not about how fast a GPU gets on a specific game. It's about finding a middle point of quality, resolution, and performance while still achieving 60 or close to 60 FPS. So you can have an idea of what to expect on a range of different CPUs and GPUs and say, okay, I can play this game at least at 60 FPS doing this different combination of factors. Okay, so the first GPU we're testing is the GTX 1060, which is a legendary card, which is still giving us many joys to this day. As you can see here, I'm using 1080p medium preset with dynamic IGTI, and the game is running quite decent. There is some going down here and there, but in general I think the game is running quite good, and most of the slowdowns is due to reading. You're seeing that I'm using dynamic IGTI, which is the temporal injection created by Insomnia instead of FSR in this case, and it's because I find FSR is slow to react to the changes in resolution that it needs to keep the 60 FPS, while IGTI is faster. Also, I find that in some cases FSR is very bad implemented and slow, which is kind of strange considering this game runs on AMD on PlayStation 5. And now I'm talking about AMD, we are running the game with the RX 580, which is the equivalent of the GTX 1060. It tends to be normally faster on most tests, but however you see that I have not changed the presets, and that's why going over those presets is going to net you under 60 FPS. However, keeping even the same presets at the GTX 1060, you're having a much smoother experience, but also generally the resolution is kept higher than it used to be on the GTX 1060, so you're getting a better experience, a better, more stable experience. So even if we are using the same preset, we are actually having a better gameplay here. So yeah, the RX 580 is going to behave a little bit better in these games than the GTX 1060, and I think that's related to VRAM, as we are going to be seeing across the next test that we are going to be doing. testing the RTX 2060 in this game was a little bit of a disappointment for me, because even though you were seeing the game running at 1440p medium with dynamic DLSS and it looks quite good, the truth is that I wanted to activate some ray tracing effects, but I could not, even at 1080p with DLSS, activate any ray tracing effect without tanking the performance to less than 60 FPS. And as we're going to be seeing during this video, I think this is related to VRAM and to some performance tweaks that Nixes need to do in order for this game to perform better. Don't get me wrong, I think compared to many other releases this is quite good in general, but I think the performance is still not quite on the level that it should be, especially when you consider that AMD GPUs can do ray tracing on this game, while the PlayStation 5 running an AMD CPU GPU has it. So there is some compromises here. Because now you see the RX 5600 XT is the only GPU I'm going to be showing running two different configurations, just to show you my point. So this card is 6 GB and it's normally almost double as fast as the RX 580. However, here you can see that the only thing I was able to achieve a bit different from the RX 580 was to set the presets to high, because that's the only way that I achieve like a good performance. But you know, just upping the preset doesn't seem enough, and I feel like we're leaving a lot of performance on the table, because this card should be, from my point of view, more competent, or at least go to 1440p high preset. However, that was not possible. To play at 1440p, I needed to lower the preset to medium, and even then the experience is not very smooth. The game will stutter quite a lot, and I think this whole thing and VRAM and anything is related to VRAM related, like the ray tracing on the 2060, the fact that this card is not performing quite like I will expect after seeing the RX 580. So I think there is something going on here that needs more VRAM than normal, and especially if you consider that this game is using the same engine as Spider-Man, and I think Spider-Man is it's better optimized, let's just say that, in terms of RAM usage and performance. And the thing that makes me think this is the fact that the RTX 3060 instead really surprised me with the performance, because here we're seeing the game running at the same 1440p as the 2060, however on high preset with all RTFX on. So yeah, it's not just that we are running on a higher preset, we are also using all the RT effects, and we are having 60 FPS very constant. So I honestly believe there is something here related to the VRAM, that this game is eating a lot of it. And if you see up there, you can see that the game is using almost all 12 gigs of VRAM that this card offers. So yeah, I think this is where the problems comes in when it comes to performance, and why some cards are not performing the way it's supposed to. Look, we are mostly maxing out how much RAM is using, not allocating how much is using. Now, while testing with the RX 6600 XT, I was able to get to 1440p high preset, always using dynamic IGTI. As I said, FSR is not as fast to detect the changes, and I think there is a bug, because actually it was running worse than native when testing, at least on this card. So once again, it may be VRAM related, but I'm not sure what's going on, but that's what's going on at the moment. But anyway, you can see here we're having a very good experience, having high preset and 1440p. I'm sure this card will be able to go to 1080p ray tracing if AMD fixes the problem that they're having with the implementation here. And even though at the moment I'm making this video, they have released a new patch, Nixe has released a new patch, it doesn't fix the ray tracing issue on AMD cards, which is quite ironic, as I mentioned, because this runs on an AMD GPU on the PlayStation 5. However, you can see here that this is running almost at the same setting as the PlayStation 5, and is running almost at the same level without the ray tracing. But then of course we have the wonderful RX 6800, and in this case we can run this game at 4K high preset, always keeping the dynamic resolution scaling with IGTI, and the game is running very very good. There is 1 or 2 frames drop here and there, but I think in general it's quite good, and I will say that those drops are more related to streaming assets and loading from the hard drive than actual performance from the GPU. As you know, this game is very heavy when it comes to that, and this disk I'm using to test the game is just a SATA 500 megabytes. Yes, I'm not testing on the fastest NVMe, and the game is running fine once it's loaded and everything. So those little streaming issues we see on the stutters is due to this hard drive issue, I'm 100% sure. So don't worry about those little bits here and there. As you can see, this card is performing quite good, and I wish I could test with ray tracing on this game, because I would like to see what the RX 6800 is able or capable of doing here. Now I'm testing with the Intel Arc 750, which actually supports ray tracing, and I was expecting a little bit more out of it, but you never know if it's the game or it's the drivers with Intel, which is the biggest issue. However, even so, we're using 1080p high preset with the RT reflections on, and the game is looking quite good. I'm also using XeSS quality. It's too bad the XeSS doesn't support dynamic resolution, because I think it will go a long way to maybe go to 1440p. But in this case, unfortunately, XeSS doesn't support dynamic resolution, or it's not implemented in this game. But still, I think it looks quite good, but it doesn't keep the 60 FPS all the time. There are, you know, drops to like 45 or from point to point, which could be related to the VRAM usage and the loading of streamings from the hard drive. But well, those drops are there, but it's still quite a good result from my point of view, all things considered. And now, of course, I have to test it with the RTX 4090 and my main PC. In this case, every setting is maxed out at 4K using DLSS balance, and the reason I'm using DLSS balance and not dynamic is just because, well, to be honest, I don't think it makes a huge difference in terms of performance or image quality, but any solution will be good anyway. What I can say is that this game really looks phenomenal when it's on a very high-end PC. It's quite beautiful, and I hope that Nixes improve the areas that still need some work, improve the areas that need performance fixes, and especially improve or make the ray tracing work on AMD cards, because I think this game should be running with ray tracing on AMD cards. As I said, it runs on an AMD GPU on PlayStation 5. So from my point of view, this game here, you know, it still needs some fixes. In general, I will say it's a better port than many other ports we've been used to recently. However, it's not quite there on the level of perfection that I think Nixes has us, you know, accustomed to. I will say that Spider-Man also has some hiccups at the beginning. I know it's hard to optimize because of the many hardware PC has, but all things considered, and you know, this is a game that once it's out there is much better than the last 5 or 6 or PC launches that we had. I wish The Last of Us, Jedi Survivor, many other games came with this level of polish. It's perfect? No, but I think, you know, that we are going to get there, and it's on a much better state than 90% of the game being released today. To finish this video, all I want to ask is for you to like and subscribe if you like the video, if you find it useful, if you like my content and you want me to keep doing it, then please just subscribe, give a like, leave a comment, because those little things are free and help me a lot to position the videos and to be able to get to more and more people, and that will help me to make more and more content. Of course, if you want to be a member of the channel and get some perks and or donate, a one-time donation or anything like that, you can do it. But I will very much appreciate any subscription, like, and especially if you ring that bell, that will help and will keep you informed of any video I release. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one.